This is the Flavor of Leadership podcast. I am your host, Clint Hoops. Together, we explore the unique blend of leadership wisdom that helps top leaders consistently achieve work goals, develop personally, and find fulfillment with family. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Flavor of Leadership podcast. This is episode number 5, and today we're going to be talking about the top reason that you are not enjoying work anymore. And very excited today to have our guest on. His name is Tyler Hoops, and the last name may sound familiar. He is actually my older brother. Excited to have him on the show. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you, Clint. Excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, Tyler, just to give you a little background of who he is, other than my brother, he is a leader with Sunstone Healthcare and has led healthcare teams, both large and small, for over 15 years. His current role gives him a ton of opportunities to help, mentor executive directors and leaders and to help them create successful operations and to also have happy employees and top performance in their nursing home facilities. Tyler is also known as the white collar cyclist on Instagram. That's where he shares leadership wisdom and his love of cycling. So you can check him out there as well. So welcome, Tyler. Excited to have you here.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. I've listened to the many episodes of the Flavor of Leadership, and I'm excited. I've listened to lots of actually podcasts about leadership, and I've never really considered, what it would be like to have this experience. And so it's actually unique. So I'm excited to be on the other end, and humbling actually, because sometimes you don't always think your leadership experience is that special. But I think all of us benefit from one another when we share examples and stories. So I'm grateful to have this chance.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful to have you here. Actually, Tyler and we actually worked together for over 6 years. And it was a lot of fun because the topic that we're covering today is actually one that Tyler helped me with during my time as an executive director in skilled nursing facilities. And so I had times as well where I was not enjoying work. And Tyler is actually one that helped me figure out what it was. And so I'm excited to go through some of those things today. So, Tyler, we have, we talk about, the topic here, the top reason you're not enjoying work anymore. I mean, work should be fun. I mean, it's obviously work, right? But it's got to be at least some fun, or it's not going to be something that you can ever have the passion and the time to stay focused on.
You're right. I mean, I think about work and when you're a kid, the last thing you want to do is work. You want to go have fun, and work is just a chore and just getting it done so then you can go out and play, ride your bikes out in the street. As you become an adult, it's this weird thing where work actually can become fun. And a lot of the time when we don't think it's fun, we start to point to reasons. And especially in leadership, that's something I found is, we work our whole career trying to be the best employee we can be. And at times, we see leadership as a reward for doing something really well, or it also comes to us because we're extremely hard workers and people know we'll work even harder as a leader. Both of those end up putting you in a leadership position that you kind of think, okay, I've arrived, now what? But once you are a leader and you dislike your job, then what's the next step? You're not waiting for the next promotion. Do you go back to being on the frontline staff or what? So,
and would you even enjoy that anymore at that point? Because you've started getting to the point where you have the ability to truly impact the world around you in your job and actually really help those that work for you. And I think to no longer have that ability would be pretty tough for someone that has fought to develop those skills.
Exactly. And frankly, what's funny is I think there's a lot of turnover. Or I shouldn't say turnover. When people change jobs a lot, they say change your job or maybe your career like 6 times in your life or something. I think sometimes as we're talking, it's kind of coming to me that we we do that because we kind of feel like we're stagnant or we've hit a wall. I think some of these principles we talk about in leadership maybe could make it so that you could have a longer sustaining career in a typical industry or maybe even the same company.
Mm, I love it. So I guess what you're saying is sometimes people run away from the thing that's making work not fun anymore.
You got it. I Unfortunately, we might do that in more than just our work life. Unfortunately, people look at that in friendships or honestly, you already dropped it about white collar cyclist. I trade bikes a lot. I buy and sell, and the funny thing is the more I ride, the more I realize the bike doesn't really matter. Typically, it's because I haven't been training as hard, and I get back on the bike and I don't like it because it's sluggish. Well, really, it's because I've gained 10 pounds. So I hate to say it, we got to look in the mirror a lot more often than we do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. So so what is it? What is it that that is keeping people from having fun at work anymore? Cuz basically when we're saying they're not enjoying work, we're saying that they once enjoyed work. I'm
Good,
guessing, right?
good
So
assumption.
first at the
Yes.
beginning is that they enjoyed work of some way. Otherwise they would have already left. And
Yeah.
so they were promoted over time. Now they're in a leadership position. Maybe they've been had a lot of success, but for some reason not fun anymore. So what have you seen?
So first thing I would say is leadership's lonely. Okay, you may lead a team, but when you're the leader, it's like you're on an island. Yes, you counsel with everybody, but at the end of the day, you have that weight and that responsibility to act when things need to be acted upon. No one's going to do it for you. Even if you delegate it, at the end of the day, you need to be the instigator. And so the thing that I would say is if you find that job satisfaction is less or that you all of a sudden dislike your job, I would challenge you to look at what decisions need to be made and you're avoiding them, or what tough conversations need to be had in your department or in your company, whatever you're leading, and you're avoiding.
I love that. That's actually when I said that I had learned some of these things from you, that is one of the things that made me not enjoy work anymore. I remember it was years ago. I was struggling, and I remember Tyler sat down with me and we started talking about things and realized that the very thing that was causing me the biggest struggle was the thing that was actually right within my control. It was the most scary thing, it seemed, until I actually confronted it. And then it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. And things began to change. And I began to be able to fix those things in my leadership over time. And it's gotten easier and easier over time to just have the hard conversations immediately. To where now I get to the point where I just have them immediately. I don't stew anymore. I just have to have them because it's just painful because I can see where it can goes. So so you see this with lots of people.
Oh, it's funny because you just said that you address it immediately. And if I were to ask you, or frankly, anyone around us, do you like it when people tell you your weaknesses or when they're direct with you about what you can improve upon? We all say, what?
We all say, yes, we want to know.
Yes.
And even though it hurts,
Mhm.
but we're always grateful.
We want it. And so we say that, but then on the flip side I say, "Okay, so then are you going to tell so and so about how their behavior is impacting the success of your team?" Oh, and then you see the individual just get real deep and say, "Well, I can't."
Because
Because
dot dot.
well, yeah, okay, the because part is probably the part we need to face. Because typically a good leader, a servant type leader or responsibility based leader says, okay, what things haven't I done to really prepare this person? So I own the responsibility just as much as they do. Absolutely. I love that you think that and that makes you a really good leader. But failure to tell the person anyways makes you an unsuccessful or an ineffective leader. Because yeah, the more we're just looking in the mirror while not helping somebody get better, then we're just slowing them down, slowing their success to improve down, or potentially if they aren't the right person, you're waiting too long.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago, we had a show on measurement and metrics. And I think this is not having identifying those clear metrics. I think that's often what leads to this because the failure to make a decision or the failure to identify the metrics early on with people, I think is what ends up making this happen in some cases.
Yes. Could I say, I want to say one thing on that line actually. Yes, that's exactly right. But behavioral based feedback is the one that I think it is a little more nebulous and unclear and subjective. That's probably the one that's even harder. It almost feels like, people are like, okay, I'm going to wait a few more months to see if they're just ensure their scorecard continues to go down and then I'll confront it. I'm like, so you're going to wait 3 months?
When you can see the behaviors now, right?
Yes, because the behavior, well, it's just that they're leaving every day at 4 o'clock. And if they would stay till 5, but who am I to say? Maybe they come in early and I just don't see it. Why would you wait 3 months down the road for their collection numbers to, really go in the tank to confront this? Because as a leader, you need to address the behavior. So anyway, yeah, sometimes a scorecard is after the fact and it
and
hurts.
and it can actually be, that's interesting. I guess we're talking even down to like lead measures and lag measures a little bit, right? So we're saying that some of these behaviors are leading indicators, and then all of those scorecards and the metrics, they will follow, and they will go down and get worse with these people. But often you have the ability as a leader, you're close enough, you are doing, one-on-one meetings with these people, you're right there in a position where you can help them. And if you see these behaviors are going to lead to something, to poor performance, you owe it to them to do it now.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to think, oh, well, they're smart, I'm not going to micromanage them. When really giving them the ability and that feedback is not micromanaging, it's leading.
hmm Yeah. I think sometimes what we do is we bounce between thinking, okay, am I trying to be too much of a know-it-all? Experience taught me this lesson, so maybe I need to let them experience it. They're young, still developing. I think we fool ourselves a little bit to think that somebody has to struggle and fall on their face 100%. Especially, maybe that goes back to developing a rapport with somebody, connecting so that they do trust that you have their best interest in mind. That's probably one reason it's so crucial up front as a leader to really connect, not because you're buddy buddy, but just so that they respect and realize you do have their best interest. And maybe from the beginning, create that culture in your companies that we do confront the brutal facts, as Good to Great says, where we actually do discuss things up front that need to improve. Because if you create that culture, it won't be so awkward. It's weird doing 2 months of not telling anybody they're doing anything wrong, and then all of a sudden drop a bunch of information on them.
Oh yeah. And say, this and this and this. It makes it feel like you never liked anything they did. And it's hard for them to keep their self-esteem and everything as a leader as well.
So, I mean, going back to like the basis of the conversation, like you said, is so how does this really influence whether you like your job? I've just been thinking about this as we're talking. Is most leaders grow and appreciate their role when they get to develop other people and help them improve. And I think the reason I find dissatisfaction in my role and I feel stagnant is because I'm avoiding, you know, a difficult conversation which could potentially help somebody, or I may deep down know that they are the wrong person and I'm just not confronting it. And and then it starts to eat at me. And anyway, it's just a bad feeling altogether when you know you got to act on something and you don't.
Yeah, that's a hard one, because I know that generally when we think someone's the wrong person, they generally, at least in my experience, it seems as though they also know inside that they don't fit, or they don't have enough awareness to realize that, and then that in of itself is also a problem,
Good point.
especially if they're a leader.
Yeah. And anyone listening right now who has a situation at work or is observing it, you're realizing everyone on the outside is observing it and seeing it as well. Sometimes it's so clear because I know, in our business, we cluster our individual nursing homes together. And so a lot of the time, one of the benefits is you have administrators or executive directors from other businesses or nursing homes coming into yours, listening to your problems or listening to your challenges, and they're giving really good insights that are very objective, and they're not, they don't know the people. And it's interesting sometimes to see how good of advice you can get from somebody that's an arm's length away from your business, and they don't see the people as, I shouldn't say as people, but they just see them as the situation as it is. Sometimes we put so many emotions behind what decisions need to be made that it does stop us. And anyway, it just eats you up.
So it's the whole, sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees kind of a mentality, right?
Yep.
So the other people around you can help you see more clearly. And I like that. I like that. You mentioned good to great and talking about having confronting the brutal facts. And the other piece that I love in that, in confronting the brutal facts, is doing autopsies without blame,
hmm
where you go and dissect a situation, especially when you have in your situation where people are able to have that resource of people that are in a similar situation to give that feedback, having that autopsy without blame, tearing things apart and seeing where the issue is. Sometimes it is as simple as a couple of key conversations or a key person in a wrong seat. So,
Well said.
yeah, love that. Excellent. So, what types of other decisions do you feel that people need to make that they often hold off on making?
One personal one that I've experienced this week even, and I talked with some leaders about it, is I lead a group of there's a number of different facilities and nursing homes that we have, but then I also have my own personal team that I work with. And with that team, we do a weekly call. We discuss what items are most important, what people issues there might have, and what strategies we need to work on. I found that that call is starting to get stagnant, and I actually have found that I would, if there's a reason for it to get canceled, I'm like, "Oh, good, let's just cancel it," because it's just easier. I don't have to go through the pain of just thinking about what we're gonna talk about,
I feel like you're creating something, right?
creating having a meeting just to have a meeting, and I'm feeling that way. Okay, and remember, I'm the person who is leading the call. If I feel that way, how do you think the rest of everyone feels?
Very
They're
true. They're probably like, "Oh man, I hope he does cancel the meeting."
exactly.
I've reported the same thing the last 3 weeks in a row, and I don't know what else to make up.
Bam. That's it. And so it dawned on me because I had to miss the call this week, and I kind of felt this tinge of guilt for enjoying the fact that I didn't have to get on the call. I mean, that's a problem because one, meetings should only be held if there's really a purpose. And then second is if they're not engaging and if there isn't some sort of strategic discussion or frankly some conflict, then I'm doing something wrong. And so I guess that's just another example of I'm dissatisfied with one of my meetings. Should I continue to tolerate it? No, I need to change. And that's something I'm committed to doing right now is I've got to fix that for this next few weeks so that anyway, it's a lot more effective. And I think people will just see that it's more engaging.
I love that. Like you said, people around you know it. I don't know about you, but I have had many different times over the years where I have made one of these decisions, and just like you had mentioned earlier, and the people around me after I make the decision say, "Wow, it's about time."
Hmm.
and,
Yeah, we're
and
always late.
that's always hard to hear, but it does give you the confidence in the future to not be afraid to make the call.
Yeah. So again, that was just small. That's a meeting example. A lot of the times, some of the big deterrents are people decisions, or frankly, maybe in industries that I'm not working in, but maybe there's a product that you're working with that just isn't as effective as it used to be, and you might have to make the hard decision to close that down or to modify it, and that's going to affect people's lives. But again, if you fail to do it, because or if you choose not to because it's uncomfortable and you choose to leave your business or to just kind of change your job, the next person's going to end up doing it. So why don't you just take the initiative, get your job satisfaction back, and continue to lift your business?
Yeah, you find that people will, when they do make these decisions, they're so much happier in the end. They have the ability to open up their mind and allow them to have other insights. I find sometimes that we're talking about how today saying, why is work not fun anymore? And I think it's a lot harder to have great insights about the direction and vision of where your operation should go if you're not having fun. It's like there's a block there, a dam that you can't get through.
Yeah, there's been many times where, you know, yes, I'm just going to say yes. I can't think of an example. I was about to talk about one of my experiences where there was a leader who was just sitting there staring at his computer and like not knowing what to do. And as partners, we came and kind of directed him and said, "Hey, here's some action items. Here's how you're going to do it. Let's write people's names next to it." And it was kind of like a light bulb, or frankly, water coming out of a dam. We finally just opened the gates, and he was able to start going. But it was literally he needed someone to kind of walk him through making the decisions or marking out the path of what conversations need to happen next. And once that happened, it was takeoff. But
Almost like writer's block,
yeah,
right?
well said. Yep.
Where couldn't he couldn't quite put the next foot in front of the other, so to speak, and see the direction. But as soon as that dam was broken, then it just flowed, right?
Yeah, you get your mojo back. That's what kind of what we always say. So, it's funny because I've even had it's so similar how leadership in business is like life. And, I'm dumb because 'cause I'm passionate about biking, so I think about it, but there's times where I can end up thinking, "Oh, man, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna go start running. I'm gonna do something different." Whereas really, I just need to tweak it a little bit, or maybe I need to step back from my day-to-day training and add in a couple, strength training or something like that that kinda makes you re-love what you're doing. I think it's the same type of thing in business. You gotta step back and just see what maybe needs to be modified.
Help the challenge be fun again a
Yeah,
little bit. So
yeah. Because most of us are competitive, and people who are in a leadership position, sometimes we're there because we aspire for it, and sometimes it's because we just naturally fit that role really well. Regardless of that, of how you got there, there's some fun to be had, and typically you're pretty competitive, and so none of us want to be in our role and not be successful.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that is one thing, sometimes we'll talk about how everyone wants to be on a winning team. And winning can look way different from team to team, but everyone wants to be on a team where they're winning. And that's the part that's fun. I mean, I know when we're succeeding in business, everything's just more fun, and not just at work, but also at home. Have you found that to be the case as well with your people you've led?
Yeah, work impacts our home life so much. And I used to hear people say, "Well, I'm just trying to have a work-life balance." That kind of insinuates that like they're two separate things, on a not a pendulum, but what is it? A weight, a weight
Yeah,
scale, a
yeah,
scale.
yeah.
You picture work on one, life on the other, and you expect them to be balanced. I think in today's day and age, and frankly as a leader, maybe not even just today's day and age, it's got to be work-life harmony.
Yeah.
You can find harmony where some days the one's a little bit more than the other, and give and take, you're gonna be a lot happier and have a lot more realistic views of of how life and or work and life kinda coincide.
Yeah, especially in our connected world these days. People sometimes I'll hear them say, "I can never escape work." And and I have to be totally honest, I've felt that way at times in life, but I don't feel that way when I'm having fun at work. I'm not trying to escape work. I like work. It's fun. It's just a part of my kind of full life, my complete life.
I have that challenge, I mean, as of today, I really enjoy my work. It kinda comes and goes just like any of us, and that's it, it's actually a joy. I just wish there was more time in the day so I could get everything done. But again, going back to like, kinda multiplying people like you talked about in your last episode, I think that's also an important part of just finding job satisfaction again I say that the important part is you've gotta either confront a problem or have a crucial conversation that needs to happen. At the end of the day, that needs to be done with the right people because then the way they respond will actually propel you forward. If you find you do those things and it's still not working, then that probably tells you that maybe you're not working with the people that you're best suited for.
Mm. The thing I find on those cases where you have those people you keep spending most of your time on, I find that what'll happen is your other good people will begin to leave, or they'll start being dissatisfied at work when really it's us as the leader that has the opportunity to help make sure the whole team is on the same page.
Yep. I Well said. Yeah, I try to pay attention to people when, in a team setting or even individually, if you ever hear sarcasm, there's always a hint of truth. And I typically try to pay attention to that because that kind of directs me as to what people might be feeling.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and that kind of goes back to even what you talked about. I mean, your role as really a mentor for the leaders that you serve, you act as kind of that person to help them see more clearly. What can we do for people who maybe don't have someone like that? So someone who doesn't really have anybody else, I'm going to say above them or there to mentor them. What do you do for those kind of people? Because I know we have listeners here that maybe they're running their own business, maybe they are the CEO of a small business, and they don't have anybody else to help them see themselves clearly or those insights. Any thoughts?
That's deep. It's unique because I've been fortunate to have that type of support for so long. A lot of what I glean is from talking with other business, associates in healthcare or potentially in other businesses, and just listen, because a lot of the principles we're talking about cross over very well. Books really do have a lot of good in them. I I've read a lot of them, and I try to just listen when people say, "Oh, this is a great book." I'll try to maybe get it on, Audible or something like that, so I can kind of listen to it or pick it up and read it. Sometimes I don't always agree with everything, or I might be like, "Okay, that's just like these other books," but there's a few other principles. And when I can just pick up little snippets that kind of give me some insights, that's kind of what I apply. What else? I don't know, Clint.
Yeah.
Have you thought through that answer? I'd be interested to know what you've seen. You've been in more industries than I have.
Yeah, one thing that I've always loved to do is to read those same books like you talked about, read them with your team. So whether your team is a team of 2 or a team of 10, reading some of these leadership books together with aspiring leaders can often help. And they can help provide insights. I've had times we will very often, we're almost always reading a book as a leadership team, and we will take turns, kind of leading the discussion of chapters. And it's interesting how you can often read the same book with multiple groups of people, and you'll be talking about the same chapter and the discussions will be completely different, and it'll be just based on whatever time you're sharing it as the time in the business. So that's something that I've really loved. Sometimes your people that are on your leadership team already or that you work with have so many of the insights that you need, they just don't know that they're allowed to say them.
I like those principles. Well said. I think there's something about this that we're talking about too, is vulnerability. You think you're the leader, so you're supposed to have all the answers. That's couldn't be farthest from the truth. You're just supposed to help figure out what those questions are, and then find the right people who can find the answers. And so I think putting it back on your team, letting them know that you're seeking answers, and showing that you don't have them all, is a really good idea. And frankly, maybe you do that on social media or with your friends or neighbors. Be open with it. Tell them if you're struggling as a business, or if you're trying to improve sales and you can't quite figure out what to do. It's amazing just what common sense and people, outside of your business might be able to offer some ideas.
That's a great point. I have found, I can't tell you how many times I've had small discussions with people that have a lot more leadership experience than I have over the years. And you talk to them and they are just open. They want to share everything with you. They want to see you be successful. They don't want you to struggle like they had to struggle. And I think there are a lot more mentors out there available for people than people realize.
I guarantee it. It's funny because, there's a way you can actually kind of cultivate people who will help you. I had a neighbor who was starting a business. It was like a hearing aid type business, and quite successful by means of them like starting small and then building it. But he started asking me, he's like, "Hey, I know you work for a bigger company. What books do you read?" And I started sharing them with him, and he was eating it up. And he made the comment, he's like, "I really appreciate learning from you." And he just kind of built me up to where I was like, "Wow, I have some value." And if I found I was starting to look for things that I could share with him to kind of feed him and help him be successful, just like you were saying. So I think we as people, maybe who individuals, we can cultivate others wanting to help us by being humble, vulnerable with what our challenges are, and then don't hesitate to kind of build people up and tell them how much you appreciate their experiences. Because then I think they'll be pretty proactive in helping you.
Yeah, excellent thoughts. I love this. I love it. We're getting to the end of the show here. And what I want to have us end on is, what challenge would you leave for the listeners? But what is the one thing that you would have them do after they stop listening to that this week?
I would challenge you to just identify what truly is potentially stopping you from loving your job even more. Take a few minutes, write down what things are hindering that. And some of it might be COVID, some of it might be, the economy and the environment outside of your control. Sure, acknowledge that. But I'm confident there's going to be something on there that you've potentially been avoiding, whether it's modifying a meeting like I've got to do because I've been avoiding it, or having a conversation, a tough conversation with somebody that you lead. And I would just challenge you to do that and see what liberation, can I say that?
Yeah. Liberation, freedom. You
Yes,
start,
freedom comes
yeah.
from that. That's my challenge for you. Take a few minutes to identify and then act on it. Don't wait until Wednesday next week because I got a lot of things going on Monday, Tuesday. Address it early on Monday because, by the way, something else will happen the next week, and then before long, it'll be weeks before you address it. So identify it, act on it, and your week will go way better.
I love it. And I would dare say that the pondering of determining what the item is, I bet most people already know. I bet it's already came to their mind as they've been listening here today. So the action is the part that'll make the difference. Just knowing it, not going to get you there.
Good point. We already know it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Well, Tyler, so grateful to have you on the show. So fun. I hope we can have you on again in the future.
Thank you. I'll work on it. Good luck, everyone. Hope you enjoy your job more next week than you did today.
Thank you. Until next week. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of the Flavor of Leadership podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback for us, you can reach me directly at flavorofleadership.com. Thanks for listening.